back then I was 87 kilos because I was like freaking 100% muscle because I used to deadlift and squat like.
Oh, that's
almost,
87 fit.
Yeah, it's like
Whoa.
8% body fat, 87 kilos, super fit, like super strength, almost bodybuilder type. Because that's what all like BMX racers. It's similar to the guys on the track on the velodrome. They're all about strength and muscle, and so it was. I
know it's sprinting. I know it's very intense, but I never imagined that actually answers quite a few questions of why are you built so strong even today. And
because I did 20 years of BMX racing, 20 years of sprinting, 10 years of heavy lifting in the gym. And then I went into road cycling.
Then endurance on top of that.
Yeah.
And officially, just so nice to meet you. It's very awkward when you have been watching for someone for quite a few years to finally get a chance, like in virtual, in person, to actually sit down and have a conversation. Let me please not butcher your last name. Jasper Verkuijl.
Yeah, it's a pretty good. Verkuijl. Yeah.
No, that's not Verkuijl. Okay.
Verkuijl. Yeah. It's difficult for everyone. It's been like that. I mean, I did BMX racing for years, and I was abroad, like, for all my races. And then, the speaker announces your name while you're racing. And they always had a difficult time. So I'm actually pretty used to people having a difficult time with my last name. But it is what it is. Maybe if I had an easier last name, it would be better for my international, like, YouTube name. But, yeah.
Yeah, well, Jasper Verkuijl.
Yeah.
It's such an honor to have you on our podcast, and you immediately mentioned some BMX racing, and that's where I usually want to start with my guests, and that is a quick rundown of your athletic background, and obviously, how did you end up loving cycling?
All right. Well, thanks for having me on the podcast. Always fun to, talking about cycling. I can do that for days, so pretty cool. Yeah, man. I started as a very, very small kid in cycling. My brother is 2 years older. He started with BMX racing. The town I used to live has a very big track, BMX track. And my brother, he just had a lot of energy. He was pretty good at cycling. So my parents figured, okay, we're going to try this BMX racing stuff. So they went to the track with him. And as I was 2 years older, I couldn't start straight away, but I went to the practice, I went to the racing.
And did you say 2 years old?
No, he was 2 years older.
He was 2 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So he started at maybe like 6 or 5. And then as soon as I wasn't even 5, and I started BMX racing.
Wow.
And in the beginning, like, your parents, they run with you over the track, to push you up those biggest hills. But pretty soon you get to ride around the whole track by yourself. And then I started racing as soon as I was 6. That's when it starts, the young categories. And I sucked, like, big time. I was last over the finish every single lap. But I loved I loved riding bikes, and I really enjoyed it. So I kept doing it. Me and my brother and my mom and dad, we traveled the whole country to go to all these different races. And it took me a long time until I actually got good at it. I remember I was always like mid-pack in the national competition until I was 12 years old. And then from one season to the next, I had a really good off season. I trained a lot that season. And then for some reason, I remember I was 12 years old. I was in the 12-year boys 12 category. First race of the year, I win it. I was like, what is this? So I just made a big jump in my performance then. And that's when I became national champion for the first time in the 12-year-old category. But that's how it is in BMX racing. Every year has a category until you get to the bigger, to the higher ages. And that's when I took off in my BMX like career, sort of. And it was from that time, it was full on, man. We went to European championships. I got on the international podiums a lot.
Wow.
Another like national championship win. I think I became national champion like 3 times or something, and then European and like podium a few times. I got 3rd in the World Championships in 2004. That was still like 15, 16-year-old boys. And then junior men, which is sort of like the comparable to the U23 in road cycling. The cutoff in BMX racing was 18 years, so it's 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
I was I was one of the fastest guys in the world in that category during that time. I was super serious. I was training every day of the week. Like after going to school, even during school when we would have like physical education in school. I'm not sure what the exact word is. I had like the privilege to go home and to train on the BMX track with my personal trainer. So it was pretty serious. Racing 6-7 weekends abroad, all these European championships, world championships in Canada, Brazil, China. I went all over the world to race, usually with both of my parents or my mom. It was our life. Like everything revolved around BMX racing. That's how I got into sport of cycling, actually. And road cycling, dude, that shit was boring. That's what I thought back then. Like the only time I would sit on a road bike was until I got older and I started doing like these recovery rides. After my big race weekend, I would do like maybe 1 hour on the road bike, and I felt like that was a long time. Like to spin on the road bike for an hour, and I just went a loop around the town where I lived, and I took the road bike to the races to do a warm up and to recover in between the heats. Because BMX racing, it's super high intensity. It's a full-on sprint for 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds if the track is longer. And your lactate is through the roof, so you want to spin out the legs a little bit in between the motos. So that's the only thing I use my road bike for. Yeah, that's how I started cycling. Yeah.
I have to admit, I didn't know that part of your life, that you were so dedicated. Sounds like you were almost a pro, whatever you can say a pro is in those junior years. But then what happened for you to transition more into road biking and not just be active recovery? Yeah.
I indeed was, we would say, like a professional athlete, but I wasn't paid. So everything was around my sport and my physical, improvement and performance. But back then, we're talking like 10 to 15 years ago, there wasn't really a pro level in BMX racing, at least not in Europe. So there is not a lot of money in the sport. So it was still all paid by my parents and stuff. But I was full time on the BMX racing. But how I transferred, well, in 2010, I started my flight school. So I always wanted to be a pilot, and I got into flight school in 2010. So that's when I had to quit BMX racing, because it was internally on the airport of Groningen, which is in the north of the Netherlands. I took my BMX bike, I hang it on the wall in my room, and it stayed there for 3 months, and I didn't touch it because I was too busy too occupied with class. We had classes every day from 9 to 5. Then I had to study, do homework for the next day. It was super intense because this whole flight school, it was less than 2 years, and you do all these theory classes. And the pace is super high, so you need to study a lot. And I just didn't have time. I went from full-time athlete to full-time study. It was a pretty crazy transition. And I literally did the last race the weekend before I started that school. And after that, bike on the wall, and I never touched it again. It was almost. So the whole... Yeah.
No, that sounds a very sudden change. Did you feel, I don't know what's the word, did you feel bad about it? Was there like an internal struggle that you had to quit this one huge passion, or the other passion, which is flying pilots, being
Absolutely.
a pilot, was too strong so that you didn't feel you're kind of leaving this other life away?
Yeah, there was a struggle, but all I can remember from when I was a kid, there were two things in my life that was super important. One was cycling, the BMX racing. The other one was becoming a pilot. It was like my dream. So one thing got replaced with the other.
Okay, yeah.
So that was sort of my mental, whatever, that sort of saved my brain from going crazy. Yeah. But physically and also mentally, I was going from having all this free time, training, dedicated training time like once or twice a day, to sitting in a class, having to study all day long. So I just had a lack of physical activity, and it actually makes you feel shit. And
useless.
I feel, yeah, I feel it now. I mean, when I'm sick for a week, it's draining me mentally, because I can only sit on the couch or lay in bed, and you don't get all these endorphins which you get during physical activity. So it was actually a hard time for me to get my head to actually focus on study. But yeah, the dedication and the motivation to actually accomplish this flight school thing got me through it. And we did 8 months of theory classes, just only focusing on theory. And then we moved to the United States, to Phoenix. And I mean, United States is a super big country for BMX racing, but I couldn't take my bike. We were flying every single day. It took up a lot of time. So I didn't touch my bike. I didn't touch a bike at all. I was just doing some strength training in the gym, because we were on this campus and we had a gym. And that's the first time I went running. I never run. I hate running. It always hurts my knees. But I bought a pair of running shoes, and I started doing like one block around the campus, which is 4 miles. And I remember I started with like 38 or 40 minutes, and I went faster like every day. So, the motivation I had with my physical stuff just transferred to that, and I wanted to go as fast as I could running around the block. I did some strength training, but that's it. And then after 4 or 5 months in the summer in Phoenix, in Arizona, like blazing hot.
That's hot.
In the desert, we got back to the Netherlands to finish the whole flight school, and that was another like 3 months. And then there was a gap, because in this time, it was after the 2008 crisis. No, there was no company that was hiring any pilots. So I finished my flight school, and I didn't have any. There was no job. I applied in the entire world, but there was no job. So I went back to my previous job in the gym. So I was a fitness coach, or like a
personal trainer type of thing.
Well, that's maybe a big word. I was in the gym, like in the fitness, just to be there and to help people around. It was not really a one-on-one coach or anything. It was kind of pretty generic. And I was a spinning instructor, so I went back to teaching spinning classes.
Back to cycling.
That's a little bit of the cycling. And I went back to BMX racing as well. But before I was racing elite men, like the highest category. But then I would transfer back to a lower category because I didn't do any BMX racing for 2 years. I was completely, I missed that edge and I wasn't as good anymore. And I crashed hard on the European Championships and I tore my AC joint. It's like a ligament between your shoulder blade and your, what's this collarbone?
The collarbone, yeah.
And it was so crap because I wasn't able to ride bikes. I wasn't able to be flying at all like that. So that's when it got me thinking like, maybe I should do something different. When I want to, become a pilot, maybe BMX racing is not the right sport. So then I started transferring to road cycling. And
there we go.
It's crazy thing is the first event I did in road cycling, it's an event, a charity event in the Netherlands. It's called Alpe d'Huez. Zes is 6. And the Alpe d'Huez, like it's a wordplay, Alpe d'Huez. It's an event where they raise money for cancer fund, and the goal is to ride up Alpe d'Huez 6 times in a row in one day. And there was a team from my BMX club who registered for this event, and I had never heard of the event. I never been on a road bike more than an hour, and I'm like, oh sure, fun, count me in. So I got registered for this event, and then I started looking at the event, what it actually was, and I was like, fuck, 6 times up Alpe d'Huez, that's gonna be like a 12-hour cycling day. And as crazy as I was with performance and motivation to reach certain physical goals, I started training for that. And I actually, in my head, I was like, okay, if the normal goal is 6, I'm gonna do 7. I didn't tell anyone about it, but my whole training program that I made myself, I started looking into, training for road cycling because I was always focused on sprints, strength training, short, intense workouts. Now I had to do 12 hours on the road bike, so it's literally the complete opposite that you can do in terms of physical performance.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out how to train for this.
How long did you have to prepare?
I think I had the event was in June, and I started like January or something.
Okay.
With
about
road
half
cycling.
a year, yeah.
So about half a year, and back then I was 87 kilos because I was like freaking 100% muscle because I used to deadlift and squat like.
Oh, that's
almost
87 fit.
Yeah, it's like
Whoa.
8% body fat, 87 kilos, super fit, like super strength, almost bodybuilder type. Because that's what all like BMX racers. It's similar to the guys on the track on the velodrome. They're all about strength and muscle, and so it was.
I know it's sprinting. I know it's very intense, but I never imagined these guys to be like power builders.
We are like power lifters. It's crazy.
That
and I
actually
say we because
answers quite a few questions of why are you built so strong even today. And
because I did 20 years of BMX racing, 20 years of sprinting, 10 years of heavy lifting in the gym, and then I went into road cycling.
And then endurance on top of that.
Yeah. So
okay,
I started training. I started training for this, and I had to build up. I went from like 1.5 hours on the bike, and I wanted to finish with a 200 kilometer training ride. I figured if I can do 200 kilometers, that's like 7 hours, then that will be a good training for this event. And I built up every week. I went longer and longer and longer. I did my tempo endurance. I did my high intensity blocks a little bit in between. And I got totally, well, not overtrained, but overreached, almost approaching that event because it was just a lot to do transfer. But anyway, I remember the first time I did 200 kilometers on a road bike, I was almost crying because of the mental, like the accomplishment that I felt at that time. Because
good crying.
Yeah. Like that's the emotions that you get when you train for something so long and then you reach it. You see it in my videos. If you see my Haute Route videos, last year, especially in the Dolomites, I had a few moments where I was on top of the hill. I was in tears because of it. I pushed myself so hard. And, well, anyway, I trained for this event. The event itself went really good. I rode up the freaking Alpe d'Huez 7 times in a row.
So you did the 7.
Yeah, I did the 7. It took me 11.5 hours of riding. I got the proof of Strava. I was riding with an analog gauge, no power meter, just heart rate. Very basic on a aluminum giant Defy, like the most basic bike you can have. Really cheap bike. And then I was like, all right, well, this is fun. But now I still miss the whole racing part. I missed
I knew it. You were going to say the competition.
The competition, man. I was always training to win and training to battle other riders. And now I'm riding my road bike for 200 kilometers and that's it. And I was like, okay, I need to start racing. But this event was in 2013. Okay, so my life story is kind of all over the place.
That's fine.
Because I also lived in Australia for a year. Because I was, during this whole training for this Alpe d'Huez thing, I was also trying to find a job in flying. And during that summer, I was dropping skydivers in the Netherlands. So I was the pilot flying this very small plane with 4 guys in the back. You open the door and they jump out of the plane. You close the door and you fly back down. And that's what you do a couple times in a row. During the winter, there's no skydiving in the Netherlands. So I applied to a guy in Australia, close to Sydney. He's like, well, dude, I don't know who you are, and I'm not going to hire you through the phone, but if you're here, then we can talk. So I packed my bags. Literally 2 weeks later, I was in the plane to Australia. And long story short, it took a very long time to get my Australian license because it doesn't transfer, and I had to do all these theory classes again. It was crazy. I was living out of a hostel, but I eventually started working for them as a ground guy. I started packing parachutes. I did all the communication with the pilots, and then I started some flying. I did some flying, and then I stayed there for a year, and then I got the call from KLM that I could apply for a job at the company, at the big airline. So, all right.
That's the Dutch national.
That's like the big company
Dutch
in the Netherlands.
Company,
Yeah, we are a major hub in Amsterdam, flying intercontinental to all over the world. And then there's another part of the company which is focused on the European. So they're the feed to the hub, to the main line. And I applied in beginning of 2015 and then started working in 2015 for KLM. So crazy transition, right? So now I'm a second officer on a Boeing 747, like the biggest plane they have, and I'm flying to all these crazy destinations. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Hong Kong, Seoul, Shanghai, Paramaribo, Curacao, all these places in the world. And there's a lot of good spots for road cycling. So I couldn't do BMX racing while I was on the road for flying because it was too dangerous. You can't rent a BMX bike. That's not really a possibility. And then to do a random bike to go somewhere to the club and to BMX, it was it
And you
was
have
not
to
possible.
look for the special places where you can actually do some BMXing. You
Yeah.
can't just go on the road with the BMX.
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense. You need to find a track, and there's tracks all over the world. But yeah, it was just not a really good idea. Like I said, BMX racing combined with flying an airplane, maybe the combination wasn't that good. So I went to do some road cycling, and I bought a bike in Los Angeles, which I stored in the hotel, and I started requesting flights to LA. And it was not like I was there every week, but I was there every month at least. And when I was there for 2 or 3 days in a row, and then we would fly back home. Because we fly through the night, we get a few days of rest, and then we can fly back. So I started training there, and it was amazing. And I started doing more road cycling in the Netherlands, and I figured, all right, this is my new sport, and I'm gonna do road cycling. So that's how I transferred to road cycling.
Yeah.
We haven't discussed the whole competition part yet, but I'll get to that.
Yeah, we will.
Because it goes together with the start of my YouTube channel. So
Exactly. Before we go there, I think most of us fans of you and that we know of you and watch you, we do know that you are a pilot. But if I may just dig in a bit deeper there, you already mentioned several types of airplanes, but for the airplane aficionados out there, if you can shortly explain exactly the type of
stand by.
pilot you Sure.
Just give me 1 second.
Okay. Okay, the planes are out.
Okay, this is easier.
So,
Okay, so-
what type of
so-
pilot exactly is Jasper?
We've got 2 airplanes, and the funny thing is, this is the smaller one, but it's because of the scale. Because in
Yeah.
real life, this airplane is about 10 times the size of this one. But I started on this one. This is a Boeing 747 intercontinental plane. It holds 400 people. It's very big. It flies from Amsterdam all the way to Hong Kong or to LA or whatever. I was a second officer when I started in the company. That means you're the third guy in the cockpit. So
Aha, you
you're-
have the pilot, co-pilot, and then the third guy that sits behind.
yeah, well,
Usually in the movies.
I like to say the captain, and then
Okay,
the first officer and the second officer, because we're all pilots.
you're
a
right.
Bit, it's a bit in the name, but for us it's a bit. It doesn't sound that good if you say, "Oh, so you're not the pilot." Well, yes, I'm a pilot. I have a pilot license, but I'm just a lower
You're right.
rank. So the captain is the guy who makes the final calls. He's responsible on paper for everything, everyone on the airplane. The co-pilot does
The
exactly the
first officer.
same. The first officer does the same thing as the captain. They both take off. They both land the airplane. It's basically like rock, paper, scissors. Okay, you're gonna fly up there, then I'll be flying back. Yeah, so now I was the second officer, and that's a bit different. In KLM, we have a second officer, which is also another name is cruise relief pilot. So basically, I was there so everyone could have a rest. So in the
I
flight,
see.
and even though I have a full license on the airplane, like I learn how to take off the plane, I learn how to land the plane, I learn how to manage engine failures, all these emergency procedures, everything. But in the real operation, I was not allowed to take off and land the airplane. I was doing all the flying duties and the non-flying duties when we got up to altitude. So basically, you fly 11 hours or 12 hours, like on cruise flight, and then everybody has a break of 2 or 3 hours, and we rotate in the cockpit. So I would sit on the left seat, and I would sit on the right seat, depending who's sleeping. Usually, I started the flight with 2 hours of sleep. So I just, I started working, we take off, we do all our duties, and then when it's time to start, our breaks, I was the first guy always to have his break. But anyway, that's what I started with. I did that for 5.5 years, and then it was kind of during the whole Corona thing that I finished flying on the 747. It was actually interesting because we started doing these special flights with only medical equipment from China to Amsterdam. So we flew mouth masks, face masks, literally boxes full, like hundreds and hundreds of boxes, to transport all these things to Amsterdam. And there was no people on the plane. They would store the boxes on the seats.
Peak of in the beginnings of COVID, everything.
Yes, in 2020, down. It was literally in the COVID time, and then they phased out this airplane. So the big one, this has 4 engines. It's very old. It consumes a crazy amount of fuel. So they phased it out a year early as they had planned. So I was transferring then from the big airplane to European operation. So that's KLM City Hopper. And I went from being a second officer to a first officer on the Embraer. Now, this is the Embraer. It's a very small plane, relative. So 100 people in the airplane, and it flies within Europe. So we had flights of, well, the shortest flight is probably to Brussels. It's like 25 minutes. And the longest flight is Helsinki, or I did Split last week in Croatia, and that's like 2.5 hours. It's probably the longest flight. So I went from flying 11 hours to like 1 hour flights, and it's a complete different story. And now I was the first officer, so I was taking off, I was doing the landings and all that stuff. Side note, I actually applied to be captain. This is a specific like way you can go through our company that I had to get my exposure as a first officer for at least a year, and then I could transfer to captain. So it was the fastest way to become a captain in our company. So this all happened within a year and a half. So from the second officer in 2020 in the COVID time, I'm a captain on the Embraer. So that's pretty awesome, right?
Sounds amazing.
Now I am the responsible guy. On paper, I'm responsible of everyone on the airplane, all the cargo of the airplane itself. So basically, the company, trusts me to have a 10 million euro airplane with 100 people in it and just go fly around Europe. Here you go, have fun, but be safe. Like, that's basically the thing. But it also meant that in 2 years, I had my education, like my type rating on a new airplane. I had to figure out a new life because the schedule is completely different.
Yes,
all the destinations are completely different. My work and free time relation is completely different. Then I had to study for my captaincy because this requires multiple exams, multiple like theoretical, not physical, but
simulations.
Simulational exams. It was a crazy amount of work, and then I had to train to go actually to the left seat and do the whole operation as a captain. So this was basically 3 periods of 2 to 3 months where I was 100% focused on my job, and my cycling was really, on second place or third place. Like, it was not the important thing. So last year when I was doing the Dolomites, if you look at my yearly amount of cycling last year, I had 2 periods of 3 months where I hardly did any riding. And this year, again, in the after, I planned it after Haute Route when I went to my captain position, so I could train for Haute Route, and then
that happened. Okay.
Yeah, right after Haute Route, boom, I went into studying for my captaincy. So there was a lot going on in the last 2 years besides my whole YouTube channel and road cycling, and that's also why I'm making less content now than I did 4 years ago. Also because I have 2 kids now, and I didn't have them in the beginning.
Well, if this didn't sound complex enough. Now we're adding YouTubing and content making and all these tours and great like big adventure rides or challenging like the Green Divide, or you're going through the whole of Netherlands or all of the regions of Netherlands. I mean, even now it's hard to imagine how you juggle between being a pilot and not just any pilot, but like huge commercial airlines all over the world. Honestly, I don't know when and how you train. Now you're completely restructuring your life in the professional career, and we all know you have a family with 2 kids, and at some point that's not enough for you. You decide to start a channel, and it's not a joke. The channel is serious. One can really see that an effort is being put into. I mean, how did that come about?
Yeah. So I will go through the same years of story, because this all happened sort of simultaneously.
That's what's crazy about all of this, because it's not like, okay, one thing and then the other. No, it sounds
everything
like
happens
that,
at the same time.
Everything is simultaneous.
Yeah, because I've got 2 kids now. The youngest is turning 3 this month, at the end of this month. And the oldest is 4.5 now. So he was born in 2018, and the second one was born in 2020. So just before COVID. What was I saying? Your YouTube channel, Okay, so I'm cycling all over the world, right? Super awesome. And I used to make videos of, I did a little bit of BMX racing videos, but only very simple, like like summaries of a trip or a race. Nothing special.
With the purpose of putting them on YouTube, or just for your own sake?
I put them on YouTube, but I think my grandma watched it, and 200 other people, and that's it. Like, nobody watched it. And then I made a bunch of videos of my trip to Australia, because I stayed there for a year. I went to all these cool activities and stuff. I made videos about that. Still, only 200 people watch it. Like, literally 200 views on the video. I was like, wow, 200 views, nice. But, of course, this developed my editing skills a little bit, right? And I made videos of my holidays skiing and snowboarding in the winter with friends. And then me and my friends, my close 5 buddies, we went out on a cycling trip to Mont Ventoux. One of the guys had a bet with his dad. If he would be faster than his dad, he would get 200 euros. Right? So that's why we went to Mont Ventoux. It was a cool story. And I figured, okay, I'm just going to shoot some video, just like I've been doing of all our like holiday trips. So I shot this video in Dutch. Not nowhere near the level of production I do right now, but I just shot some shots and I talked a little bit, and I rode up Mont Ventoux and I talked to the camera a bit, and then at the top I waited for my friends. I was the first guy to be up there because I just trained way more than the other guys. This was in 2006, just before I started actually racing again on the road bike. And we went into the descent. I had the camera on my handlebar. I'm like, okay, this descent is pretty awesome, right? I'm going to film the whole thing. And my best buddy, he went after me in the descent. But remember, I've got 20 years of BMX experience. I got the handling skills. I've got really quick responses and all that stuff. My friend, he's a pretty good cyclist. I mean, he's a strong rider, but just not on the same level.
He's not an ex-BMX pro.
Yeah, not on the same level with technical skills, but he's a cycling fanatic, so he goes after me, and we let it roll, like, downhill. And when you let it roll down the Mont Ventoux, you gonna go
100k,
100 kilometers an hour, all right? And it goes pretty good because it's a long straight and there's a few corners, but then all of a sudden there was a sharp corner. Now, just before the sharp corner, he overtakes me. I see this corner coming. I brake. He sees it a little later than me, but he's in front of me. He starts braking. He has a high sider, and he flies straight into the bushes on camera. I could just make it through that corner, and I started braking full on the brakes. I had one idea in my head, like, okay, this is either gonna be okay, or it's a one-way ticket to the what's the called, the place they bring you when you're dead, to the mortuarium. Like it was, it was my best friend. Like it was really serious. And then I turn around and I see him walking out of the berm. Like fuck, I was really happy that he was still alive. So this video, I made this video of this whole story. I made one single video of the descent. And I put it on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Crash on Mont Ventoux. And I put it on YouTube. Dude, this video takes off. Goes viral. It has, well, we're 10 years later now, or 5 years later. Now it has like 2 million views. And it went really blew up. And also the video about the whole story, why we went there, also did very good on YouTube. So that's when I thought, okay, maybe it's fun to make videos about cycling. And I was training because I was flying to LA for my job. I was there for 2-3 days. I started training there a lot, and I just made a vlog of my training rides. And people started watching it. And people actually thought I was living in LA because I did most of my videos in LA because that was the best place I could ride my bike. The scenery was amazing. I was there for 3 days, so I made 3 videos every trip, and I published them like every other week. So people thought I was there all the time. It was really funny. People was like, "Oh, why do you live in a hotel?" And I got all these weird questions because, yeah, the viewers didn't really know me yet, and they just couldn't figure out what was going on because I'm not telling everyone in every video that I'm a pilot and that I fly to LA for work. Like, I just don't put it out there. I don't think that's the most important thing because it's about cycling. So only the people that really watch my channel and have been following me for a longer time, they know that I'm a pilot.
Yeah.
Random viewers, they have no idea. Anyway, I start cycling, videos about cycling, and then I figured I need to compete. What we just talked about. That feeling from the inside, I need to compete. So I started racing. I got a license, like a road cycling license, and I started racing both in the Netherlands and also in LA, because there was a local club. I went on a training ride with them, like a group ride, and they're like, yeah, why don't you join our club and try to do some racing here? I was like, yeah, didn't think about it, but why not?
Was that more crit races? Because they do a lot of those.
They pretty much only do crit races in the US. There's hardly any road races, and especially in the LA area, it's all about crit racing. Of course, now, if you don't live underneath a rock, you know the guys from Legion. Corey and Justin Williams. I had never heard of them. I did not know who these guys were. I've never heard of Sharon Smith or Rashan Bahati. All these guys who are legends in LA on the road bike. I didn't know them. So I signed up for my first crit in LA. And I raced Justin Williams. I raced Corey Williams. Whoa. I raced all these guys. I had no idea. I just started smashing my power around, like sprint, because my sprint is crazy, right? Because I still have this BMX physical thing, but my endurance sucked. So I could do that for a few times, but I blew up big time on my first crit in LA. So because I went in there, I'm like, USA guys, they're not that fast. I mean, the real road cycling is in Europe. And I can do that easily. I'm just gonna go there. I'm gonna win all these preems, and then I'm gonna sprint for the win of this race. And I was racing P12, like the highest level, against the strongest guys of the US, the strongest amateurs, which are Corey and Justin Williams. If you look at just the crits and the sprints. I had no idea. So I get dropped in my first race in LA. It's like massive crack, massive dent in my ego. But I make a video about it, and I make my first race video.
Yeah.
A lot of people liked the video, and I started doing videos about racing, and that was my most popular thing. And I raced in the Netherlands. I shot the race, and then I did the voiceovers, and I started developing my style, and I started increasing my the way I edit, and it takes a long time, a lot of practice. Meanwhile, I was doing all these vlogs in LA, but also in Hong Kong, because I was riding in Hong Kong. I got to know the local cycling community in Hong Kong. I went to Seoul, South Korea. I rented the bike there, and I went cycling in South Korea, and I did vlogs there. And I went to Paramaribo, and I got to know these local guys in Suriname, in Paramaribo, and
so interesting,
San Francisco, and all these places. It was amazing, man. It was so cool to ride all over the world, to make videos about it. And that's also what was so diverse about my channel, because I was doing videos in all these different places, and people they just didn't understand. How can you be in LA now, and last week you were in Hong Kong? And they just didn't understand it. It was really funny sometimes, and it was still a hobby. Like, it was still for fun. I was making these videos because I liked it. I was living at home with my parents in the beginning, no kids. When I got home from a trip, boom, I was editing videos 3 days straight, and then I went to the next trip. So that's all I did. And I did 2-3 videos a week in the beginning of my channel. I got lots and lots of views. I was growing not super fast, because if you're like a hot chick in the beginning, you're gonna grow 10 times as fast as YouTube. That's just the way it is. But I was growing faster than I'm growing now, crazy enough. But yeah, I started doing all these race videos. That's how I started.
And even to this day, it's all you with the editing.
100%.
That's just unbelievable.
Okay, 99%, because I had like 2 very simple a review video made by an online service. I didn't like it at all because the whole process sucks. And every race video, every vlog, every adventure video, 100% my work, everything.
I'm beyond fascinated. I mean, I've talked to the vegan cyclists. I talked to Dylan Johnson. It's unbelievable to hear and comprehend that all of your content, on top of your life, on top of your career and everything else, that it's all you. And I'm like just scratching that surface myself, trying to do something with content, and I just can't imagine the level you guys are. And there's one thing I have to ask, because I mentioned I talked with vegan cyclists, and there's a couple of videos with you guys together, and you have a direct question from him, actually, of the time when you guys rode in Yosemite, I think.
Yeah.
And you were attacked, or something happened with coyotes, wild dogs or something. And like that had to be some nice experience. And I'm asking this because I'd like to take away from your answer, what have you taken away from your YouTubing in terms of relationships with other YouTubers? Vegan Cyclist is one, but maybe you have collaborations with others.
Yeah.
So start with the Yosemite ride.
Yeah, man. Vegan Cyclist. Tyler, his name's Tyler.
Yeah.
I didn't know him. And as you get like more serious in the YouTube, you start looking at other people, other channels. Like, what are they doing? How are they making their videos? Can I get some good ideas from this? Or it's always, it's good to get inspiration from other people. Mm-hmm. And he was way bigger than I was, and now he's even bigger than I am compared to what I have. But he was always a bigger YouTuber, so I looked up to his channel. I'm like, dude, he's doing pretty good. He's got like 50,000 subscribers, and I only have 10,000. So how awesome would it to be riding with him? And I was flying to LA, and I was flying to San Francisco. Well, San Francisco is relatively close to Bass Lake, where he lives. It's a 3-hour drive, I think, or 4 hours even. I can't remember. So I sent him a message on social, whatever. Like, dude, I am a YouTuber from the Netherlands, or I'm a cyclist from the Netherlands. I make videos, and I can get layovers in San Francisco. How awesome would it be if we ride together and maybe make a video together?
Wow, I didn't know. I thought you guys knew each other before that.
No, never saw the guy.
This was like a cold call.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, sure, man, let's do that. And I can't actually remember if the first time I saw him was in Bass Lake or it was in Big Bear, because I also met him in Big Bear, but I would have to go back to my videos to see which one was first. But I think it was Bass Lake, I guess. And he's like, yeah, just come to my house, and I will, you can stay at my house, and we'll go to Yosemite. I'm going to show you one of the most amazing rides I've ever done. We're going to camp in the valley, and then we'll ride out the valley the next day. Fuck, sounds amazing, right? So I rent a car, I fly to San Francisco as a pilot, I sleep, I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's what you do when you have a jet lag. It sucks.
Yeah.
But I got the rental car. Okay, mini story inside a crazy story. I got a rental car. Parking lots in San Francisco are ridiculously expensive. I put out an Instagram shout out like, is somebody can help me with a car spot for the night? This guy says, sure, I have a garage. You can park it in my garage in San Francisco. So he was close to the hotel. So I put my car in his garage. In the morning, at like 4 o'clock in the morning, he was already up. I go to his house and I take the car and I drive to Bass Lake. Pretty awesome. So I ride there in the dark. For me, it's 9-hour time difference. So I'm all good. I'm all awake. And I arrive in Bass Lake at his house. And we get ready to ride bikes. And I rode his old bike. Completely... Well, he sort of cleaned it, so it was alright. But it was kind of like his stationary trainer bike. It had one half shifter, and it was the bike was good, but the state of the bike was a little less. But anyway, I was super happy to be riding on this nice road bike with him, and his wife was gonna drive with the tents and his kids and all the gear into the valley, and we're gonna take the bike. So we ride in the park. We get this amazing camping spot. Out, it's when you're there, you thought you're in the middle of nowhere. Like 100 meters further, it was like a proper campsite with trailers and stuff. But we were sheltered from all that. So I'm in the middle of Yosemite Valley. Just did one of the most amazing rides I did. And we put up our tent in that camp spot. Well, you should watch the video. It was awesome. Yeah. But the next morning, we wake up. Now, he and me, both YouTube guys, both having a camera in our hand, like 23 hours of the day, right?
All the time.
But this exact moment, we both did not have our camera on us, and you could hear the howling of the coyotes. Like they make this crazy sound. And at some point, we hear this noise, and there's a herd of deer, like Bambi deer, and they run past us. Like, not even maybe 5 to 10 meters away from us. And they like, full speed. And we're like, we just look at each other. It's like, wow, that's cool. All these deer. Fucking 5 seconds later, maybe 5-6 coyotes. And I thought it was wolves because I never saw a wild coyote. These beasts were freaking big. Like, they're proper, like, wolf-sized coyotes.
Whoa.
And they sprint. They were chasing them down. It's like, holy fuck, man.
In the middle of camping ground.
In the middle of the camping ground, 10 meters away from us, we just saw like a bunch of coyotes chasing a group of deer. It was amazing, man. And
you didn't have your cameras on.
We both didn't have the camera, but yeah, I got to edit it into a cool story, and still you have the, you know, a little bit of the idea. I had like one shot of the deer, and
so
yeah,
cool.
that's the first time I was riding with Tyler, and then we rode out of the valley this day, and I took the car back to San Francisco, and I flew back to home the next day.
Remind me, this was a few years ago, 3, 4?
This must have been somewhere in, I don't know, 2017, 18.
Yeah, about 5. Well, nowadays, I mean, obviously, Tyler is in such great shape. I mean, he's the national champion in long distance. But
yeah,
at that ride, how were you guys compared fitness-wise? Were you stronger? Was he?
Okay, so funny. That ride, I can't actually remember. We just sort of took it easy, but I was the way heavier guy back then. So, like I mentioned before, I was 87 kilos when I started road cycling, and I went down slowly, like every year I went down a little bit, but I was still heavy. I must have been still like 85, 84 kilos, and he was a very light guy compared to me, right?
Okay,
he's
so on the flats, you could smash him.
On the flats, I was really powerful, but
Yeah.
this ride into Yosemite has a crazy amount of climbing, so it was pretty much climbing the whole time. So he was definitely the stronger rider when it would come to climbing performance.
Yeah.
Another trip we did was in Big Bear, and we met up with a velo guide. We went mountain biking there, and we also did we go mountain biking? No, sorry, we went road cycling with a velo guide, and then the next day we did like this massive ride all the way down the hill because Big Bear is on elevation. It's 2,000 feet up, so that's like 600 meters up. We went down, and then we had a 3-hour climb back into Big Bear, and for some reason I completely rode away from Tyler. He thought, I'm gonna smash this guy because I'm a light guy, and I've got so much on him, like watt per kilo, but the gradient was very low. It was a very long climb. It was like 5-6%. So at that low gradient, you're still in an advantage when you're more heavy and you have more absolute power. So I smashed him. Like, it wasn't a race. We were not battling, but I just rode away from it, and he was dead. So we were kind of, challenging when we would ride together. Like, we could really ride together really nice. For going uphill for me was a bit harder if it would go steep, but on the flats I would definitely be stronger. And I think back then he had he has zero sprint compared to me, and I was just like this big, bulky sprinter.
Almost like a track guy.
Yeah. I was like, I remember the first time, or it was in Big Bear, and I took my shirt off, and he looked at me. He's like, "Dude, you are ripped. What? My wife would be so jealous." It was really, really funny. I was like, well,
this is normal.
This is just who I am. It's like I go to the gym.
Well, finally he's now ripped as well. His last Train Like a Pro month, this past December, he got down really serious with the nutrition and everything. He's finally so happy. He's happy for himself to be ripped. Anyway, it sounds to me, from what I'm getting from you, there's something in your character, in your personality, that's what I call an all-in personality. So whenever you decide to put your focus into something, it's all in.
Yeah.
But that's somewhat paradoxically, because you are all in multiple things. But and so as I said earlier, it's hard to comprehend for people how much effort there's into YouTubing, how much immense effort there's in proper cycling at your level. I mean, you are very competitive. For example, some of the stage races you've done, the hot route, I mean, you're top 10, you're top 5. And I've been to one, like, Grand Fondo 200th. To be top 10, that you are very high level. And on top of everything, you're a commercial airliner pilot. So you're all into these things. What is something unique about you that makes you able to just handle all of these things into the same 24-hour day that we all have?
Yeah. I think it's an evolvement of my BMX career. Because doing like being a top athlete, like riding your bike a lot is not the same as being a pro athlete or a top athlete. I'm not sure.
In what way?
So,
like logistically, like
no, in everything. It's
or just performance level.
Yeah, performance, dedication, and putting aside certain things to meet your goals.
Putting aside.
Yeah, I mean, when I was 15, I was what age are you? Like from 15 to 17. It was my last few years of high school. And the beginning of university, because I also did a year and a half of aerospace engineering on university. But my last years of high school are fun, right? You've got a lot of friends. You go out in the weekends. You drink a bunch of beer. Everybody has parties. When you graduate, there's graduation parties and all that shit. You drink till you freaking die or almost pass out. I didn't do that shit. All right?
Okay.
Because I was focused. The last year of my high school, I was actually training for. I was in junior men, and I got national champion and 4th of the world championship in Canada in BMX racing. I didn't go to these graduation parties because I was training that day and the next day. I missed out on a lot of all these usual nights out with the boys, with the friends in my racing season, because the next day I was training or the next day I was racing. So in the winter I would go out a little bit. I didn't even drink alcohol, man. I was back then you could drink from 16 years and older in the Netherlands. So it was super normal. Like my friends, they would go out every weekend on Friday and Saturday and they would drink beer in the bar. I would go out with them in the winter and I would drink iced tea or cola because I didn't drink alcohol. I did not drink alcohol all year. Nothing. Maybe on my birthday I would drink a couple beers. That's it. So people ask me, how do you do it? It's fucking dedication. You have a goal and you do everything that's needed to meet your goals. So like I said, I missed a lot of birthdays because I was out somewhere in Europe racing my BMX bike. I missed school parties because I was training and I had a race the next day. And this is what formed me mentally. I don't know anything different than to put aside everything that's needed to meet my goals. Because that's how I got raised. That's how I got old. I mean, from the age of 14, 15, that's how I lived to meet like my BMX goals and to be the best of the world in BMX racing. So this just transfers to my life now.
That's right.
And to be honest, I've got 2 kids now. And the hardest challenge of me has been to let go part of my personal like goals and personal time to spend time with the kids and the family. Because if you ask me, like, this may sound really weird, but if you ask me deep in my heart, all I want to do is race and train and compete and do awesome shit, like riding in Yosemite Valley and doing a mountain bike race in Big Bear and to do all these crazy challenges, race across the whole country, 570 kilometers in one day. But I've got 2 kids now, so I have to make a little bit of a shift.
Yeah.
And the oldest is 4.5, and I'm still struggling with it's still a personal struggle to divide my time between my own shit and the rest of the family. And people only see what they see on Instagram or YouTube, and they only see me race these races and do all this stuff. But there's a lot of people, I'm pretty sure, who spend a lot more time with their family, and that's what they're happy with. And I'm still finding the balance, and the balance changes all the time because my work changes. I'm now working less, so I've went down like from 100% work to 80% work. So I've got more time to do what I love, and that's riding bikes. But also, I still have time for the family because I was just, and I have a super, super, super supporting girlfriend. And that's what people may not see on my videos. But if your girlfriend says, "Hey, dude, you've been away for 5 days," which is pretty much every week, I go away for 3, 4, 5 days in a row out for work, and then I come home. And then if your partner or your wife or your girlfriend says, "Hey, here are the kids, I'm gonna see you later," then you're fucked. I mean, you can't train, I can't edit videos, I can't do anything. But my girlfriend is not like that. And she's super supporting, and I can't give her enough credit for that. So that's
nice.
It's not just me, it's also the environment that I have created, and also that my girlfriend allows me to do what I do. And but then again, man, if people ask me, how do you do it?
It's pure dedication.
It's dedication, and it's priorities. How often do you sit in front of your computer until 2 o'clock at night editing videos, and then getting up again at 7 to ride your bike, and then again editing videos from 8 o'clock till 2 o'clock at night? Because that's the only time that you can edit videos, because during the day you need to watch the kids.
Working kids.
I need to work. So if you think, oh, I'm actually sitting on the couch watching my Netflix series every night, well, there you go. That's why you can't do what I do.
Absolutely.
It's priorities, and of course you need to relax sometimes. But I always feel that my relaxed time is
on
when
the
I'm
bike.
on the bike. Yeah.
I knew. So what you're saying is, and I think this is a common thing among high achievers, is they, for some reason, circumstantially in their life from very early age, they have recalibrated their brains into such high level of dedication that, as you said, it transfers in later years in all other areas of life. And then you don't feel it like a sacrifice. You don't feel like you're missing out on Netflix. You don't feel like you're missing out on some, I don't know, passing out of drinking beers. And I think it's not a small thing, but it's at the same time, it's not unachievable. It's just, as you said, set your priorities and dedicate all in.
Yeah.
It's still deserving of huge respect. I mean, if you chose just one of these fields would be enough, but doing them all of us are I don't know if somebody tells you that, but we are very grateful that there's people like you to actually inspire and motivate us. I mean, I'm also a very kind of hobby amateur trying to do some higher cycling. I've been an athlete all my life, but nowadays it's cycling, and I'm trying to do some content, and I have a kid and work, and yeah, it's just super nice to hear you say that. It motivates us a lot. I didn't have planned to go deep into how you train because there's a ton of videos out there, and of course, to all of our viewers and listeners, Jasper obviously has his own channels with a lot of information there on your life and your training and racing and how you got to where you are. But there's one thing that I usually try to find out, which is an area that you felt you had to overcome. So what does that mean in your case? You mentioned that naturally, and we're talking about training here, fitness, physical abilities, maybe mental. We mentioned BMX, there's a specific athletic build that's required, and you were like that, a power athlete, and then switched over to long distance cycling.
Yeah.
And we all know the different factors that play into cycling, from endurance to sprints to, I don't know, fat metabolism to glycolytic power and all of that range. In some, you were a natural, but in others you weren't. So maybe in all these years, there's something, some physical area or mental that you feel you had to dedicate, work, and finally overcome a limit or a weakness that you had.
Oh yeah,
Is
absolutely.
there something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first part that I already discussed was the time that you spend on your bike. That was sort of a mental thing. Like, I just always thought like, oh, road cycling, dude, that's as boring as watching grass grow. I mean, nothing happens, and I just ride straight, and there's nothing.
So that was a mental thing for you.
Yeah, it was a mental thing, because BMX racing is 30 seconds, it's all out. Everything happens by reflex. You don't have time to think, and it's just so more like high energy, and I still think that's the case. If you are a spectator, you go to a BMX race, dude, it's a big spectacle, and it's so much more thrilling to watch. But road cycling can be thrilling in different ways, and but the mental aspect was one thing. To just sit on the bike for hours and hours, it can be boring.
Was it gradual that you slowly reprogrammed your mind to not find it so boring, or was there a moment when it just...
No, it was not really a moment.
No,
it was during that time I trained for the LB6.
Grinding.
It was just, increasing the length and just sitting it out. And I a lot of people train on group rides, and they always have a training buddy. They ride together all the time. I actually always ride alone.
Yeah.
I know a guy here in my town that I can ride with, but because I have the family and stuff, it's too difficult to really meet up on a frequent amount of time. And back previously, I didn't really. My friends weren't into road cycling yet, or not as much as I was. So I always train alone. So it gets boring. But now I listen to podcasts and music while I'm riding. But the mental aspect was like,
you overcame a mental
hurdle. Just
a hurdle.
Yeah, it didn't feel really like a problem, but I do know that in the beginning I felt like, dude, 2 hours on a road bike, that can be more boring. Nothing can be more boring than that. And now I just feel like awesome, like riding. I get in the zone and I just ride and I think about stuff. A lot of my ideas and new things on the channel and the stuff that I do, I think about during riding. So there's a big thought process in lots of projects and videos, and I think about it and the edits and stuff. When I'm editing a video, then I'm riding and I think like, I can do this and I can do this, and I make the edit in my head, and then I sit on the computer.
I have to ask you here, but I totally know what you're saying. Then when you come home right after your ride, are you immediately writing something down? Or...
No, actually not.
Because I find myself forgetting about, like, I would go on a 4-hour ride and all these scripts and scenarios, and
I
the
literally
whole video is in my mind, but then I come home,
you
and
forgot
I forget.
I make
you keep it?
I make notes in my phone during my rides.
Oh, while riding.
I literally type in title ideas for a video, or I make a voice message in my phone. I'm riding and I'm just talking like, oh yeah, in this edit I can do this and this and this, or I think of a good opening sentence for a video and I just speak it into my voice
and
memo.
that's enough just to kind of make a mental note.
Yeah, and then I get back
genius.
on the computer and I just like, oh yeah, this title idea and this mental things, and so sometimes I make notes. Yeah. So, but one big challenge, and this is a physical challenge, and I haven't been struggling with this lately because I didn't do that much crit racing, which is very high intensity. But the biggest issue I had physically was cramping. Cramping. And I know there's a very big discussion online about cramping. Every time I mention cramping in my videos, 100% somebody's going to say, oh, you need to drink more, you need to take more electrolytes.
It's like you don't.
It's bullshit. It's 100% bullshit. There has been some kind of research with mine workers. They were dehydrated and they were cramping. So now everybody thinks that cramping is caused by dehydration. It's bullshit. Or there may be a factor with dehydration. But actually, if you look at the science right now, they're still figuring out why people are cramping. So there is no direct science about the reason of cramping. But the biggest factor of cramping is just that the effort is too big. Like your body is just not able to cope with what you are putting it through. And my body was super focused on sprints, super tailored to sprints. So my glycolytic, you already mentioned, my glycolytic system was so well developed. My lactate motor was massive, way too big for a road cyclist. So every effort that I do or did, it's changed in the last few years, was anaerobic, like glycogen burned, lactate pushed into my body massively. Every sprint I did, every time I accelerated. So what you have in a crit, especially in the Netherlands, it's all sharp corners. So every time you go through a corner, you brake and you accelerate. And if you're a very aerobic cyclist, you can do this on fat burn and on your aerobic system. My body, every time I put out 1,000 watts because I'm a heavy guy, I need to accelerate 85 kilos. It's every time it's lactate, every time it's full anaerobic glycogen burn. So I just killed my body within half an hour because I was not able to reproduce that sprint over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because in BMX racing, you do one 30-second sprint and then you have 20, 30, 40 minutes of recovery, and then you do another sprint. So, and it has, like you said, we're not gonna go very deep on training and all that stuff, but it has to do with your VLA max. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's a very complicated factor, but you can look it up on Google. VLA max is your ability to produce, to burn carbohydrates and to produce lactate. So the higher your VLA max is, the more your body is sort of tailored to using carbohydrates anaerobically to create energy.
And how does that correlate with the cramping?
Because I fatigued my body by by producing energy anaerobically, and all this lactate builds up and it fatigues your body, and then at some point your muscle cells are just too tired to work. And a relaxed muscle cell is actually in tension. Remember, when you die, you get stiff, right? So all your muscles, when you die, all your muscles stop working and they
tense.
They get stiff. So you actually need energy to loosen up your muscles. So what happens when you get tired, when your muscles get too tired to function, they start cramping up and they can't let go because the system doesn't work. So you cramp up and you're just cramping up and your muscle doesn't have the ability anymore to relax, to let go. So that's why you cramp. That's my take on it. That's my theory on it. I'm sure people are going to say, oh, this is bullshit. You need to take more electrolytes. Dude, do you think I didn't try that?
Right.
I've been taking electrolyte pills or tablets
or
before racing, the days before racing, more salt, more carbohydrates. Dude, it was 100% fatigue in my case. So somebody else might have a different cause. In my case, it was fatigue because my body was used to BMX racing, sprinting, and now I go into 1 hour and a half or 2 hours of road cycling with repeating sprints the whole time. I just could not cope with that.
So knowing this, and I'm also guessing there's a correlation between a bigger guy, a more muscular guy, being more predisposed to cramping. Maybe that's my theory. But knowing this, have you changed something to fight against it, to make it easier?
I've done a lot of aerobic training.
So it's just that.
It's just training, but it's so difficult. It was more easy for let's say a human body to build up to being an aerobic cyclist from zero than for me to take my body who is completely tailored to BMX racing, to strength and power for 15 years or 20 years, and then transfers that into aerobic.
You're saying that's harder?
Yes, it's harder.
Is it? Oh yeah.
Yeah, because
you already developed heavily into a certain area. Now you have to redevelop everything. Yeah, right.
To
that's harder than just starting from blank and becoming aerobic. Wow.
I feel like my body is sort of hard coded into being a sprinter and a strong base instead of endurance.
Yeah.
If I start training in the gym now for 3 months, I get back and I'm pretty sure I can do like a 150 or more kilo squat, deadlift, no problem, because my body is like, yeah, this is what we know, this is what we're gonna do, and I will be sprinting again 1800 watts within 3 months. I haven't done a single sprint training, and I still sprint 1600 easy on a Monday morning. It doesn't matter.
1600
easy.
Wow.
Yeah, but I used to sprint way over 2000 watts. That's normal for a BMX racer. If you look at the top level BMX racers, they sprint 2500 watts peak power. So everybody thinks like Marcel Kittel and name a sprinter, Mathieu van der Poel, he's a strong sprinter, and Sagan, dude, they sprint 1600 watts. It's not big a deal. But the difference is they sprint that after 6 hours of cycling.
After 6 hours,
Take a road cyclist or take a BMX racer, put him in 5 hours on a road bike, and he's worthless. So that's the difference. But a true sprinter is not a Peter Sagan. No, a true sprinter is Jeffrey Hoogland, Harry Lavrijse. These guys are on the track. Or Nick Kieman, a Dutch guy, a Dutch BMX racer, Olympic champion, world champion. These guys sprint 2500 watts. Easy.
Yeah.
But only once.
And on BMX, there's these crazy cadences. I mean, the RPMs on that is what 180, 200
easy.
cadence?
Yeah.
Which is
but
just
the
neuromuscularly, that's unbelievable.
And a sprint is very neuromuscular, right? Yeah. So I'm always being used to that high cadence. So my muscle fire ability and my neuromuscular thing is so high developed, I can spin very easy. So, and that's part of your sprint. It's not just the power, it's actually how you can fire your muscles, and if you can do that fast enough. So this whole cramping has been a big issue. Now, I started with crit racing 2017, 2018. Then I transferred to longer road races. I went to elite category in road cycling. And I started doing more long distance training. I started doing more like tempo interval blocks to really increase my aerobic motor. Because I knew I was still a sprinter. But if I wanted to sprint after 180 kilometers in my road race, I would still have to get to the finish.
Yeah,
and if I would be cramping up after 3 hours, I would never be able to do a sprint. So
that
I just stopped. I stopped the sprint training. I stopped the strength training, and I just went into cycling only on the road bike. And that's slowly developed. And now I'm doing these crazy climbing events. And I'm still
and multi-stage events like hot route this year. I mean, what else do you want? You're fourth, fifth. What was it?
I got
this
I got
last
fourth.
one. I mean,
I got fourth.
And you're recording it. I mean, it's just
and that's what people ask me, like, how can you record it during a race? And that's it has become second nature, right?
The recording side.
The recording during a race has become second nature, because I've been vlogging while I'm riding for years now, since 2017. So that's 5 years that I've been basically riding with one hand with a camera, thinking about story, thinking about shots, thinking about what I'm gonna say. Already thinking
like
about the
the
edit while
Wow.
I'm riding the bike. And then in the race, I start and stop that camera every time. People ask me, how can you record a race if it's 5 hours? Well, I start and stop the camera every time something happens. So I've got two brains working in a race. One is my cycling and my race brain. The other one is the video creator brain, which is constantly like, okay, wow, this is a nice shot. Okay, camera, boom, nice mountain. This happened. Okay, and now I'm gonna say this and this in the camera, and then that will complement to the story. I'm gonna use it in the edit.
But then you have to mount it back.
Yeah.
And the whole.
So I mounted back really in a race. Wow. I have this sticker on the stem, and I just put the GoPro stand on that. And during mountain bike racing, I have this chest mount, and I put it in the chest, and I can take it out. I just unclip it. I talk to the camera. I do my shot, and then I clip it back, and I switch it off.
You said it very nicely. You have two brains doing two different things at the same time, and that's just pure training. Again, a lot of content on your channel. We're not gonna go through all of it. Please go to Jasper's channel, whoever doesn't know him. A lot of great videos. I do have to maybe ask of you to guide your new viewer into what was your toughest race or challenge, or just pure logistically, what was the toughest thing you had to do so far? And maybe that's going to be the entry point for your new viewers.
When you said what's the toughest thing that you're going to do, I immediately thought the next thing.
Okay, well,
all right.
Say so the next thing. What's the next thing?
The next, I always try to up my game, right? So the next thing is always the more challenging race, the more challenging challenge, the bigger project, more cameras, another drone, a guy on a scooter. That's what I want for next Haute Route, right? Because I'm racing Haute Route again. I did Dolomites last year, Pyrenees this year. Well, we're actually already in 2023, so it's actually last year.
Okay, yeah.
And this year, 2023, is going to be Haute Route Alps. Now, I want to increase my production again. I'm talking to the organization. We need more camera guys. We need a camera dedicated for me on a scooter, for example. That's really what I want, because I want more shots of third person of me riding, because
You think you're gonna get that? I mean,
I'm trying, because I'm well in contact, because I get invited to this event, right? So I do this together with them, but they have like their dedicated video production company that makes their videos, and I need a guy from them to focus
Just
on
for
me
you.
to get me my shots. But that's a different story. If you look at logistically what been the most difficult challenge, well, look, I've got this on my wall, and I think it's in reverse, so you can't read it. Yeah, that's kind of weird. You actually can see.
Oh, that's the whole Dutch.
This
ride.
is the crazy cross country challenge.
Yeah.
This has been the most challenging, or logistically the most challenging thing, because I had to figure out a route across the entire country. This was COVID time, so I wanted to stay in the Netherlands. Through all 12 provinces, the route had to be fast, not through all the cities, but also through all 12 provinces, from the most southerly point of the country to the most northerly point of the country. Then we had to figure out if the follow car was able to follow me. Well, they couldn't follow me everywhere, which you will see in the video if you watch it.
Yeah, some of the roads are not quite.
They got stuck because I was going literally on a bike lane with a pole in the middle, and they were like, okay, what's next? So they had to chase me down and get back to me. I had to share my live tracking link with some kind of tracking service that I had to figure out. I tested out a few different apps for that. The whole follow car was logistically a thing, with the camera guy in the car, food and drinks in the car. My parents were driving. The whole publication of this challenge, so people would know where I was gonna be and when. So this was the biggest thing, I think, logistically, that I did. And then the next thing is Haute Route, because in Haute Route I'm there alone, right? I do not have any support. I don't have my parents. I don't have a coach. I don't have a
friend,
mechanical guy, not a friend. It's me, and literally, it's me in the camera. I am there, and I have 3 or 4 cameras with me. I've got my my tripod with me, the big one, and a bag, and the bag goes to the next hotel, and then it's me until I get to my bag. So I take the camera and I shoot the race. I get to the hotel. Then after the race, so after you've been racing 5 hours, I need to figure out where I'm gonna find this spot to shoot this video for the storytelling, right?
When you recap every stage, yeah.
Yeah, because I thought I made up this this layout, or this how do you call that? The idea, or the way I edit this story in the Dolomites. So I shoot the story in front of the camera, and I tell what happened during that day. And then I overlay that with all the race footage. Yeah. And I think people are really enjoying it this way, and it feels like you're there. It's just a step extra on top of what I do for other races, where I just do the voiceover. So then I take only race footage and I just do voiceover. Now I've got this whole storytelling shot, but you need to find a spot. It takes me an hour or more every day just to find a good spot, because there's
it's just you. There's no other guy, because I thought there was, at least for those shots where you're talking over the day.
It's me.
Wow.
I take the tripod and I literally have the backpack and my bike, and I ride around town, and I just okay, I'm gonna need a good backdrop. So there's a good mountain, but it needs to be
and the hay.
Yeah, but it needs to be a spot where it's quiet, right? Not cars going the whole time. The wind noise was a big issue. So I changed different spots multiple times. It's really a
and
thing
this is
to
between
find.
You just rode.
I just rode my bike.
Recover, and you have another stage tomorrow.
Yeah, I have to eat, shower, and then I have to find a spot to shoot because it
And
still
you're
needs to be
alone
light.
again. That doesn't go into my mind that you're alone. I was never gonna guess that.
So
And then all of the materials. Every day you have to copy those.
yeah.
That's
I just
another
take
hour.
I take multiple SD cards. So about 2 races will fit on one SD card. So I put a new SD card into the camera, into the GoPro that I take with me, and I end up with like I had like 300 gigabytes of footage, 10 hours of footage, and then I get some footage from the organization. So the drone shots. I don't make the drone shots during the race, obviously. Right? Okay, I'm not taking the drone.
Thank God.
No, that's just the shots, but it's not shots of me. So the drone shots, and you see people riding, that's just a random shot. That they
to put some overlays while you're
just
talking about
to give you a sense of the environment where I am. If I talk about some climb, then you're gonna see, boom, a drone shot of the climb. It sets the stage, right, of the story. People can see what I'm talking about. So. That's a thing. I have to travel there with my bike and then travel back, and I travel freaking every week. But it's completely different when you travel personally, because I'm not controlling the situation, and the airport was chaos because of the whole. They're understaffed, so the security line was literally over 4 hours. And I just skipped the line because otherwise I was not gonna make my flight. And I was the guy that is the asshole and that walks through the line. But that's what I said. I will do whatever the fuck I need to do to get shit done. If I miss that flight, I'm not gonna be in stage 1, right?
Yeah.
And I've got big stuff going on. Like I need to make this documentary and. So I made it. I make it happen. And
please, everyone, forgive Jasper for being the asshole on the airport.
Yeah.
It's worth your while. Go watch the video. You'll see why, and it's gonna be worth your while.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm grateful. I told you this many times. I'm telling you again. I'm grateful that there's content like yours out there. That
thanks.
Gives me motivation. Gives me ideas and inspiration.
Yeah, the response has been amazing. The response of the Haute Route documentary has been amazing.
Of course it's going to be. I mean, it's so genuine. I think people are going to rethink some of these things that it's going to take me a few days just to comprehend you being alone on a race, multiple days. I was never going to guess that. I'm really surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, the production is just... It's like a team around you. I mean, you've seen Impossible Routes, right? From Tyler.
Yeah. And they are with 5 or 6 guys. I
mean, I don't know, 2 cars, 5 people, cinematographers, cooks, all of that.
Well, part of
your
that is, of course,
is almost on par. I mean, maybe his last Impossible Route in Europe. I mean, that's just next level. I don't know if you've seen it yet. His last Impossible Route is next level. But everything before that, your Haute Route with that seems like, to the average viewer, that's some good quality cycling content. He's a team, you're alone in another country. It's gonna take me some time to comprehend that.
Part of the organization of the logistics is done by Haute Route, right? So Haute Route will take care of my bag, take it to the next hotel. They will take care of the food along.
They're gonna do that for every racer.
Yeah.
Don't take away credit from you. Well, they're doing that for every cyclist there.
Yeah.
It's just all these other things. And finally, to wrap up, you mentioned a lot of things, how you do the things that you do, but maybe like a final message of, the typical advice to people that are maybe in a similar position. What would you give as an advice to such guys?
And then advice for general life or performance on the bike or?
We gotta go performance. The podcast is called Performance. People
yeah,
that are
I'm all about performance.
motivated, driven, dedicated, but maybe struggling, maybe thinking twice
One
on
thing,
deciding.
yeah,
Those people.
what I encounter often with other people is they don't set a proper goal. So they want to train and they want to get better and they want their FTP to be 300 or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, well, what's your goal? Yeah, I want to be just as good as you are. I'm like, no, that's not a goal. That's not a measurable goal. Set a goal. Like I think there's this.
So you're saying be
smart.
specific.
Yeah, smart goal, specific, measurable, accomplishable, whatever. I can't exactly know what it is, but you need to have a very specific goal that you can reach and you can measure and that you can train for. If you don't have a goal, what are you doing? You don't know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? Right? If I don't have a goal, my training suffers instantly. So after Haute Route, my goals are gone, right? My next goal is Haute Route July the next year. I'm not going to train for that now. It's just too far away. So my motivation disappeared completely. I was on my family holiday. I took my gravel bike. We're in Belgium. Freaking awesome weather, amazing scenery, super cool gravel roads. I was riding my bike. I was out. I was riding for an hour. And like, what the fuck am I doing here? I turned around. I went back home. I did not enjoy it at all. Look at the scenery I was riding. It's amazing. I just didn't have the motivation. So,
but that's part of the process. Accept
yes.
that's part of the process because you know there's the next goal coming.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say set a proper goal. Don't set a goal to be as good as somebody else because that's not a goal. Make a goal personal. Make it your goal. And don't set it too high. Don't set it too low. And then for me, I learned for myself this past year that I really need a break after my peak. So after Haute Route, I went into my captain's training. I went into family holiday, but I tried to train. I tried to keep training because I didn't want to have that massive physical dip again as I had twice last year. So I tried to keep on training, but I couldn't do it. I was not motivated. I was mentally drained from like all these training sessions for the whole year, focusing. It was like my post-goal dip. Olympic athletes
which is a normal thing.
The post-Olympic year, it's very normal.
Yeah.
Accept it. Do something else. Enjoy your holiday. Don't take the bike. And spend a week at least without your bike. Maybe 2 weeks. I mean, I listen to these podcasts and they discuss physical detraining after your goal and what happens when you don't train. And they say, oh, you can do 1 week without training, but then you really should start cycling because otherwise your fitness will go down so far that it takes a long time to get it back up. Sure, that's physical, but in your brain, in your head, you need to be able to do this. So if you need 2 weeks or 3 weeks without the bike, you need to take it because otherwise, I feel it now. I spend 2 months sort of training, but not having a goal. And at the end, I still had to take an extra dip and let it go a little bit because I couldn't do it. So now I'm back. It's January. I got sick again during Christmas, like having a fever for 3 days. And now I missed a race. I was training towards a race. I made a goal in December so I could set myself back into training. I could get myself motivated to train. Now I missed the race because I got sick. Really shit, right? But now I've got my next goal is in April. So now I'm going to be building up to that.
Is your mental hunger back now?
It's okay. Yeah, I'm okay.
It's back. Okay.
Yeah, so
Cool.
I'm gonna be focused. I have a coach. He makes my training plan every 2 weeks. For now, I'm gonna be building up again. We're gonna get back into training, and I'm gonna be ready when I need to be.
Just quickly, this is for myself. How many hours per week are you gonna say? Are you gonna
Train?
train this
Yeah.
next
So
period?
I train my average about 10 hours a week, 10 to 15.
Okay.
So my big weeks are close to 15 hours, but average it's more like 10 to 12 hours.
Okay.
Crazy thing
Which
is, I see guys doing double that.
That's not too much. Yeah, that's not too much.
and I keep up with them. So I don't want to be bragging or anything, but just riding your bike is not the same as training. My 12 hours are 100% efficient. Okay?
Yes.
I get on the bike, I exit my street, that's 100 meters, and then I can ride without stopping my pedals for hours.
And
some guy,
it has a purpose. It's
and I
not
train,
for
I do my intervals, I do my blocks, I do my endurance, everything. And it's 100% pedaling time. Some guys live in the city and they ride twice as much as me, but they do group rides, they do coffee rides. All this bullshit is not going to help you perform.
It's not focused.
Don't
so 10
stop.
to 15. Not
Don't
too
stop
bad.
in a ride for a coffee because it's bullshit. Either before or after the ride, not in the middle of the ride. So that's also part of dedication. I ride my bike for training. I don't ride my bike for coffee rides or that bullshit.
For coffee.
Yeah. And some guys like to do that. Fine, man. But don't expect to be a freaking hero on the bike if you take a coffee every hour in the ride.
Yeah. Jasper, it's really been a pleasure. You're so inspiring. I'm telling you, I've gathered some very fresh motivation from you just from this talk. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I wish you a fast recovery. You still have a few days left from your fever days. All the best to your family. All the best to all of your goals and motivations. And again, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. It was good to talk.
Cool. Cheers.
Okay.